Okay. Ready? You need to mute your microphone. Got it?
Yep.
And your computer. Okay, we're ready to go now. Very good, everybody. Tonight we're here to talk about that achievement application process, so we appreciate you being here for that. We'll start with moving this kind of to the side. What is the achievement application? So this is a pretty standard application that we're using across the state now that we will apply, or folks can apply to use for Congress, National 4-H Congress and Conference, and scholarships. Last year we launched this with one version, and we got good feedback saying we actually need two versions, a junior and a senior, and those ages are determined based on eligibility for these national trips. So come on in. And then those youth that apply on the senior level and take it to the state can qualify to be considered for National Congress, Conference, and scholarships. Yep. So it's kind of mainstream or streamline the achievement or recognition process for our 4-H members. So, but many people don't really know what it means to be a national delegate, that sometimes they're just applying or using the achievement application for county or local awards. So I like to just introduce what this actually is, what it means to go to national conference. That's located in Washington, D.C. That trip typically takes place in April, early April. And this is last year's group with Deb Fisher. And so it's really focused on building up your skills in leadership and civic engagement primarily. Youth attend, and their week is focused on an issue that youth face, and they learn how to research an issue, create some educational points, and then they meet with representatives and others to talk about why that's important to youth and how politically they would like to educate and be a part of that process. So it's a really unique experience focused on civic engagement. We only take 3 for that. The achievement application gets you to the interview. So we screen the applications when they arrive January 15th, and then a week later we do an interview for the top 10 candidates, and from there we take 3. So it's a pretty selective, it's a good second step if you've already been to Congress or if you're really passionate about civic engagement. And then National Congress, we take 23 or more. We scholarship 23 youth for the Congress experience. If you're named an alternate, you can also attend, but you pay your way. So this year we're taking 27, which is the biggest group I've ever organized. So we'll see how that goes, which is a large number. So 23-year scholarship and 4 more are choosing to pay their own way. It is a leadership development experience and a networking experience for youth from 4-Hers all over the nation, convene in Atlanta, Georgia after Thanksgiving, and they interact and meet each other. They do service learning opportunities and learn about what 4-H is like in other states. So that's National 4-H Congress. I went in 1993, a long time ago. So you may be familiar of how we used to do things, which was the career portfolio. Some people even may have done a record book in this room. I did a record book in 1993. And so a lot of that, particularly the portfolio, was a lot of micro reporting. The number of times you entered XYZ and earned this ribbon, et cetera, et cetera. And so it might have looked more like list making. And now we're shifting more into what others call a narrative experience. And the reason we're shifting that way is because this is what college applications look like these days. Scholarship applications do as well. So it's a good opportunity to practice these skills of taking these lists or that kind of specific reporting or recording and turning it into a narrative about what you have learned and who you are as a 4-H member, and then transferring those skills to college applications and scholarships, and even job interviews, as you begin to communicate pretty succinctly who you are and why you're the best candidate in your resume, come on in, or in the interview process, because long lists are a thing of the past. So, and then we have some main areas in our achievement application. We ask that youth write to their 4-H experience. We're going to break these down in a few more slides. They write to their leadership experiences, their community involvement or service learning experiences, and then what we call career spark. So those are our four main areas that we are evaluating in the general achievement application. For seniors that are going to Congress or conference, we ask them to go a little bit further, but for juniors, it's just these four. And this chart illustrates kind of some of the differences between the two applications. 3 pages for the junior, 4 for the senior. That's actually on the high end. I know folks think, how do we go down to that? There are some career portfolios that were over 100 pages long. And so now we're down to 4 pages. But we were just talking about Georgia 4-H. Theirs is 2 pages long. And they do an interview for their project achievement. So that's in addition to that, but it's 2. And then they can have 2 pages of supplemental documents. So ours is 4 pages of narrative and or picture that you want to intermingle for seniors, and 3 for juniors. So it's really pushing you to be concise and really highlight what you would consider to highlight experience, really identify that. When we ask for 4-H experiences for juniors, you just need to talk about 2 program experiences that were highlights. And then for seniors, 3 program experiences that were highlights. No juniors qualify for the statewide awards. That's okay. But of course, for seniors, Congress and conference, they have to fill out a representing Nebraska 4-H section. And we'll explain that in a few more slides. And then the deadlines, the county deadline is set for the juniors, and we go by that. The seniors can also adhere to the county deadline, but the state deadline that will come to 4-H Achieves at unl.edu is January 15th. And so, yes, you can submit in the wee hours of January 15th. We got some late night submissions, that's fine, but January 16th, I'm up at 7 a.m. putting them all where they need to go, and then they are then orchestrated from there for the judges to review. So that's the deadline, and we adhere really close to it, particularly moving into this second year. I did recognize some names. I think you were up really late submitting this.
They can't hear you online.
Huh. I've said a lot to be able to hear me. I can always sit down if you would mind. How about now? Good. I'm going to keep going. Okay. So for juniors, I start out with, how do I get started? It's really true for juniors and seniors, is that you first, of course, download the achievement application. We have it in a variety of forms, a PDF version that is fillable, a Word document that you can insert things into and save it, and then a Google Doc. Now, you cannot edit that Google Doc because it is the original format or template for this. What you would need to do is make a copy of it, and then you can fill it for yourself and use that. But we don't want you to change the original. We want you to use your own if you're going the Google Doc route. A lot of schools have used this as a way for you to turn in assignments. Adriana, do you use Google Docs? My kids do too now, so that's. Yep. So every kid has a Google account and they use that to turn in homework or papers or what have you. So that's one reason we went for that as an option, is because a lot of youth are familiar with it from school. And then after you have downloaded that application, you'll identify a program area. So this is probably one of the newer things that folks may not know about, or how their old career portfolio curriculum fits into these program areas, because we have 5 now. So agriculture, STEM, leadership and entrepreneurship, healthy living, and then college and career preparation for my future. So for agriculture, this typically includes animal science, veterinary science, and plant science. Now, leadership has a lot, so I'm going to look it up. But those 3 areas primarily. So before plant science was stood on its own, it's now a part of the agriculture program area. And these are in line with our content areas that are part of the Nebraska 4-H framework. That is the reason for the shift. So,
I have a question. This is Erin.
hi, Erin.
Can the 4-H'er change their program area over the years, or once they choose it, they stick with that?
I know from a state perspective that is fine to change. No big deal, because interests change, and then all those things happen. We want them to follow their curiosity. And
good. So that's based on what they've done this year.
Yep.
Okay.
And even if there's a question that asks about your history or your career in 4-H overall, but there's also a part that specifically addresses what did you do in the last year. So you can speak to the breadth of areas if you're interested in different project areas, but if it changes, that's A-okay. That's one reason we use this format. The achievement application is to create opportunities for youth whose interests have shifted to be successful, that they don't have to stick with X project for 7 years in order to earn the trip. If their interest shifts, they have a great shot at winning that year as well. That's part of that. And even folks that are new to 4-H can have a shot at this if that is what they want. Good question. Thanks for unmuting and just asking it. STEM,
Right.
Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. This includes environmental science, engineering, and technology. All those projects are a part of that. Leadership and entrepreneurship. And this is a long list. That's why I pulled it up to make sure I did. Community action, community development, communication and expressive arts. You may recognize that from a past curriculum area. Civic education and engagement, leadership, and then entrepreneurship. So it's explicit. Before, entrepreneurship may have been kind of a part of one of the other curriculum areas. We're now saying that it's its own with this program area.
Is the list that you're reading, is that available somewhere online?
It is not at this time, but I definitely can share it with Emily.
That'd be great to share out with club members, because I'm not writing them all down. Sorry, I'm not quick enough to get them.
That's okay. That's good. It's in this slide deck, so it's in my notes section, but I can't read my notes with it this way. But yes. And then college and career prep could include any next chapter work you've done, if you've been a part of that 4-H service learning that you've done, or after school participation, or any kind of special interest club. I did skip healthy living, so I'm sorry for that. That's health, nutrition, and fitness, if you've been a part of that project area. Social and emotional well-being, and then consumer and family science is a part of the healthy living. So that used to be its own curriculum area. It's a part of this healthy living program. So yeah.
What is STEM?
science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's environmental sciences there now, and that used to be its own curriculum area. So you'll identify where you fit best. If you have a question, you can ask, of course, your county, or if you can't decide, Emily, you just reach out to me and we'll have a conversation. I've already done that with several counties as they have tried this out for the first time. No problem. We'll figure it out. And
So I have a question.
yes.
So when a youth is looking at what area they're wanting to enter in, should they first be discerning what their project area is and what they have the multitude in that year, or what they did best in that year? What direction do you fall in?
I would encourage them to enter in the most meaningful area where they have had the most growth,
Okay.
and change. And sometimes that is about quantitative change. They began with 2 projects in baking, and now they enter X amount. So they've had this change over the last 3 years from minimal involvement, but the curiosity maybe sparked them to explore it more. And now they're baking whole wheat bread and buns, and instead of just starting out with county level cookies, they've had this tremendous change and really want to figure out food science and things like that. So it's really about that. And sometimes I'll cover this in a few minutes, but sometimes it's getting a white ribbon in an area. That's a meaningful experience because you realize I learned a lot about myself and my work ethic and or what I need to do better. And that's valid on this achievement application. You don't have to be the superstar grand champion.
Okay.
That could be your experience, and that's why it was meaningful. But if you tanked something and you realize, I didn't work at all at that, and I know now what it takes, and there's learning that happens.
So that helps me understand that, because it's not based on the achievements you've gotten at FAIR, it's your personal growth through each area.
Yeah,
Is that
and
correct?
your achievements at FAIR could be a part
Could
of
be
that,
part of it.
but it is not solely focused on that.
So the
Kathy.
history from 2 projects to present, that's in this part 1 part. So if the member is doing this shortened from 1 year after year, is that changing very much then?
Perhaps. It just depends on what they explore and how things change. It may not. It may change very little. You may just be adding another.
Like one thing that happened this year, because then part 2 is where it's the current year separate, right?
Correct.
Am I understanding it?
You are. We'll get to that if anybody is confused. So if you're a senior, you have multiple steps to fill out that introduction. You want to first designate what you're applying for. So you see that there. You can apply for state scholarships, conference, or Congress. You're going to identify what you're applying for. I hope both, but no pressure. You've already done the work, might as well be considered. But if you definitely don't want to go to DC, don't check it, and or Atlanta. But if you are going to Congress, we determine winners based on program area. So you will need to select a program area, okay, if you're applying for Congress. So that initial part in the application for senior is 2-step. What are you applying for? And if you're going for Congress, what area? You may only choose one area of submission. This is another change from years past where you have been allowed to put in multiple areas, just one. So the About Me section is pretty obvious. You're going to your name, your address, your county you're enrolled in, and then it does ask for your birth date. Please do put that and your current age when you submit it. And that just kind of helps keep it all clear. And so the first actual content area is about your 4-H experiences. Part 1 looks at your collective experience over time. And so that is your career reel, I guess you would say. What you maybe started out doing to now. You want to make sure you articulate the depth of success or interaction, and also the breadth, like you have been in 5 project areas, but you concentrated in 2 specifically. You might want to highlight that here. Make sure you have the number of years you are in the program. That helps. It helps if you articulate that. And then those program experiences in which you engage. Now see, that language says experiences and not areas that you entered at the fair. So there may be a time when you're the junior leader at a week-long workshop camp, and that experience was transformative. You learn you want to work directly with children, and or you can't believe how much behind the scenes Emily has to do to complete these workshops, those kinds of things. So if that is an experience, it's not limited to their entry. What skills have you learned, and what have you learned about yourself? Part 2 focuses on the last year in 4-H. What have you been doing? What is your level of involvement? And then for seniors, 3 program experiences that were your highlights. For juniors, it's just 2. And we want you to describe the experiences. What did you do? Who all was involved? Why did you want to participate? And what did you accomplish through this experience? Your favorite part, what did you learn? So I know you had a big cleanup day at fair, right, Emily? And so that could have been a really big highlight despite the challenging nature of it, because of the way the community came together here in Washington County, or maybe just the physical labor that you put into making those fairgrounds so much better. There's a lot of joy that can come from that. So that's a good example. And then how will these past year influence you moving forward? Like, will you continue in this project? Have you then added a class to your roster or to your schedule to continue to explore whatever project area you're talking about? Have you said, I'm now going to shadow Emily? I was so impressed by what she did the workshop. I want to see what she does in an afternoon here. So I'm going to shadow her. Something like that. What's next for you? Any questions about the 4-H experience area? On the senior application, it's 30%. It's the majority of the score. 30 points out of 100 is what happened in your 4-H experience. Thank you. So, but really, how do you, great, I can say all this, but how do you actually create an achievement application from about those 4-H experience, etc.? And so I have offered how I would teach you all is through 3 different approaches. And so first, make sure you create a list of your experiences. And for some of you, it could be a past career portfolio that you have that already recorded in. Sometimes folks are keeping this in an Excel file or just a list on their phone, what they've done with their calendars. I know there's a family in Douglas Sarpy that each time they complete a project or something, they turn to the entry day and they write it on that day on the calendar so that when entry day comes, they can see their list and they go pull all their stuff and know what to take to the fair. So whatever kind of list you are maintaining, start there. Again, it could be that former career portfolio or achievement application if you've been doing that. And as you evaluate that list and what you see, look for patterns of involvement that can help you demonstrate what you've learned up to this point. So maybe once you've seen this list, you realize, I've done a lot of baking in the last year. I've taken 3 classes with Kathy in order to learn X, Y, Z, more than anything else. Maybe 5 classes. So something's up. I must be interested in that, and or my parent has forced me to do this. And so might as well explore it, right? You'll start to see patterns of involvement. And that's kind of what can give you a clue, like, hey, maybe I should write about this, how much I've grown in that, or I didn't realize I did so much in that area. And so maybe that's kind of something I enjoy. So does everybody understand? I'm sure you do, but this patterns of involvement, you just look at that list and you're starting to look at what stands out to you in that. And it says see worksheet, and that's that workbook. I think, I don't know if you all have it or not, but that gives an example sheet of that. I straight made that up, so. I don't think so.
That's one that.
The one that was
Triggered.
So yes, that's an example
Yep.
for writing. Mhm. You keep turning the page, and you'll see. That's another writing example,
I think that's an example.
and another writing example.
I don't know if that'll work. I can see from email.
I'll pull that up in a minute.
Okay.
Work? Good. So those are some examples. I've mainly been involved in animal science projects that could tell you what area to submit to. I've done a lot of different projects, so maybe you're going into the college and career preparation program area because you've been sampling a lot of things. It's giving you some clues about what's next. And then maybe you've competed in one competition for 8 years, you've always earned a purple. That might tell you, hey, I'm good at this. You're always earning purples at county and district for speech. You might have some talent. And that's an aha that you see that pattern every year that you've participated. And that, own that. Say that's a good thing, because it is. What do they tell you about yourself? They could tell you that you're very focused if you've mainly been in one project area, or that you like diverse experiences in 4-H. 4-H does have that it offers a little bit of everything that you can really explore what you can do for your future. Maybe in the last year or two, you started in 4-H and you just jumped right in and you love the way maybe that's what it's telling you. And then you see here, competing, getting all purples, I have a real talent, or I've applied a great work ethic to it. Those things are significant. And writing about them for your 4-H experience and your achievement, that's part of the achievement. The purple ribbon, yes, but noticing that you have talent in this area and that you've applied great work ethic to it and claiming it, that too is achievement. So this is an example that look at your reference list and identify the biggest highlights of the year. So you see for 2019, this person listed, they were a camp counselor, they went to county speech and earned purple, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ag innovators training, maybe they participated in that. And those green arrows are those things that this individual said were highlights. That they entered some scones, they earned a purple. That wasn't necessarily a highlight, but earning a purple at district was, being a part of Ag Innovators Training, which is a statewide program, maybe that was a highlight. And then they became the premier science winner at state fair. So then going on from there to write about that in their part 2 of 4-H experiences. Good. That's 4-H experiences. You see that list? Legit, I created that list, like made it up based on my daughter's interest. I'll just be honest. This is what, she's never won Premier Science, but these are things she likes to do. So then we shift into leadership experiences. It says 2 different parts. The first highlights your 4-H leadership experiences throughout your career or within the last year. It doesn't have to be limited like the 4-H experiences does. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be about occupying a role like president or vice president. Maybe you helped coordinate your club's efforts for the Linda Hand Day, or you were even a part of that. That's showing leadership, initiative. So it doesn't always have to be limited to a specific role. It can be, but it doesn't require it to be. I have some things listed there for what you can demonstrate leadership, taking initiative to address an issue, engaging others in the program. If you brought 10 friends to fair cleanup, that's pretty terrific. Representing your program at community events and being a club officer or a 4-H council member. Adriana, you're a junior ambassador this last year. Definitely a leadership role that you took for the county in 4-H specifically. So if I were you, I would definitely write about that. And then part 2 talks about your non-4-H leadership experiences you've had that help build those skills. So this is from other organizations you're a part of, that maybe some school experiences. They have safety patrol. It's some of my kids' school. They're a member of the safety patrol. Maybe community experiences. We have a 4-H'er in Omaha that was on the mayor's teen advisory council. That was a really unique opportunity for her to have a leadership experience in that community. Those types of opportunities to write about.
Is that just for the year again, or is that based off of?
It can be either or and. So it can be long term. If there's some, I would say that mayoral teen advisory was probably a highlight for her. Don't want to speak for her, but it was a big deal for her to get in. And so that might be one feature, but the leadership over time, man, she can also speak to that as well. Mm-hmm. No restraints on time for this one. We really just want to understand how it's developed. 20% of your points are with leadership experience. So half of your score comes from your 4-H experience and articulating about that, and then how you've acted as a leader in 4-H and in your community. So here's an example.
Maria, before you go on,
Okay.
when he asked, can it come from experiences in church?
Yes. I would call that not an other organization, but it's an organization outside 4-H. You'll see that on the slides. So here's an example of some writing. This was really from a junior's perspective, not as thorough as maybe a senior would be. And again, it says, I've been a part of 4-H since before I was even born. So like a little hook line, right? My parents met at a 4-H center, so you can say 4-H is in my DNA. I've been an active member since I was 5 years old. I can still remember how excited I was to finally compete and earn purple ribbons at the fair. So we're beginning to see the longevity of this person's interaction with 4-H, not necessarily the depth that she would have experienced in 4-H, but we know that she started early on in her life interacting with 4-H. When I first began, I only wanted to try one project area, right? So that starts to tell a little bit about how she engaged in 4-H and then what she loved about it, making treats. And then I soon learned 4-H is filled with so many more ways I can grow. I participate in 4 county competitions and enter exhibits in 4 different project areas. So we see how it's changed over time with this kind of language. When I started out, I only wanted to bake. And now I'm in 4 different county competitions and I enter in different project areas. So we're seeing that variation, that change over time. And then she went and created a chart so that you could easily digest her ribbon achievement in those contests. That is not a requirement, but that's how I like to do things, is kind of have a nice visual. You could list that out in bullets. You could do it some other way, but when I'm reading through things, I don't like just narrative. I like a little mix up. Not required, just a suggestion. Good. So you good? All right. Let's see if I would echo again. I think it's your computer maybe. So these are the specific questions associated with leadership experiences. I feel like my slides have gotten a little out of order, but we're going to keep rolling with it. It asks you to describe those 4-H experiences, the type of leadership it was, when did it occur, and then your part in that experience and what did you learn. The same is true for your non-4-H experience. Make sure you name what it was. So if you're outside of 4-H, you were a student council member, you're part of your youth, it says youth choir junior director. If that's what you did in the last 2 years or something, that's pretty cool. So highlighting that and things you've learned from that. When it occurred, that gives some framework for the context. Those are good pointers for making it a quality submission. Sound good? Yeah. So here's an example. I'll read the writing. One of the most influential experiences that's helped me build my leadership skills has been a part of the worship committee at my church. I'm the only youth on the committee. I'm responsible for sharing what music or scripture would be meaningful for youth to hear as they participate. In order to be successful, I've really worked on developing my assertiveness and my listening skills. So we see some specific skills that this young person has worked on, and how often I meet monthly with the committee. I've learned the following things. So she lists it in a bullet instead of broke it up from the narrative a little bit with bullet points. I worked on not being afraid to say your opinion, even if you are the youngest person in the room. Asking friends for opinions before I attend the meeting, and then my public speaking skills as I read scripture and welcome people to church. And then this person even added a picture and captioned it with what she was doing. So that's kind of a little bit of an example. Are you starting to see kind of where we're going?
So you don't have to follow the English language of doing it.
Well, I'm not sure what you would help me understand what you mean.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're putting bullets like that in, you're showing that it's to be a written form. I haven't seen these examples. I mean, even the application. But to me, it would be, just writing, and
You don't have to do that. You can be
creative.
You absolutely 100% can be creative. Someone asked last year, could we do a video? We said no to that. We still want it on the form for now. We may, who knows what may come in the future. In Tennessee, they have to create websites about themselves. We're not there yet. I couldn't teach people how to do that, but
PowerPoint would be cool.
yeah, for sure. Yep. So yeah, you can break it up with charts or bulleted lists. But there was a senior application last year that had a lot of written narrative. It was quite good. But the two probably most outstanding were broken up with photos that were captioned and not just exclusively narrative.
Like, how many photos would you say? Just one per page, one?
I would not make it distracting. Make it, if it clearly articulates and supports what the 4-H'er is doing or writing about, use it. I also would encourage it to be consistent. And that might sound harsh. So for those watching the recording, I'll just preface it by saying, if the 4-H'er is writing about how much fun he or she is having at the event and the photo looks like this, I would not use that photo. I would go for another photo for that option. So it's consistent with the language. If you love making pies and your stir looks like this, right, instead of like, if it looks, like it matches the language, definitely use it. A good illustration of the learning or the meaning of the experience always helps with a nice visual. One of the best that I read last year had a cover page. We didn't have rules about that yet, so I would not do that this year, but it had a picture of she and one of the steers that she showed. Probably a senior picture or something. You could see how delighted she was to be in that project and what great control she had. It was just a great example of her love for that project area. Mm-hmm. Some choose to put all photos on one page. That's fine. but I would encourage you to caption your photos so we know what's going on. Yeah. No rules. If you intermingle it with your language, so be it. If you put it on one page, that's okay too. Just stay within the page parameters. 4 for senior, 3 for youth.
Is there like margin rules and all that kind of stuff as well?
That is.
And that's all spelled out somewhere on the website.
I'll pull that up towards the end. So community involvement or service learning, it doesn't have to be both. It can be or, and. You want 2 times you're involved in volunteer service. You want to list that type of involvement, when it occurred, your duties, responsibilities, and skills, and what you learned from that experience. Right? You're starting to see a pattern here with how we want you to respond to these things or how we suggest you respond. If there's something else you want to communicate about these, you do not have to stay limited to these 1, 2, 3, 5 bullets. These are just prompts to get you on your way. So here's another example of a photo where they're in their cleaning gear. They've got their trash poles and things like that. And then she writes about picking up trash may not seem like a fun way to spend Saturdays, but the members of the 4-H club love getting together every other month. So we're knowing how often it occurs for trash cleanup in the old market. We've been doing this for the last year. We compete to see who can fill up the most bags and what is the most unusual piece of trash we can find. So that is probably pretty unusual in the old market, but it tells you a little bit that she actually did these things because she can give this type of detail to that experience. I've learned to enjoy serving my community and that when we work together, jobs that may be boring become a lot more exciting. I've also learned that littering is the worst. So, sounds kind of like vernacular, but to junior, if I ever did litter when I was younger, I never litter now. So that kind of learning that she takes away, this kind of community, we can do it in community. We're seeing that articulated in that brief example. And then career spark. And so spark is a word that some people don't always use in their everyday language. And so we want to make it real clear what we think it is or what we hope you will take away with. That these are your interests and passions that young people have that light a fire or excite them in their lives. And they may express the essence of who they are and what they offer the world. An institution called the Surge Institute said that. But it's really something where you think to yourself, I want to follow that and learn more. I can't stop thinking about. I'm really curious about. I love when I'm learning or working with fill in the blank. What about you, Adriana?
I'm really interested in genetics, and I've been following the role of either an epigeneticist or a cytogenetic technologist.
So learning about genetics is super cool for you, eh? Right on. Good. So my youngest loves rocks. She loves to collect rocks, learn about rocks. I don't know about rocks, so I just let her have it, right? She wants to know what type of rock is in what area, et cetera, et cetera. It really excites her. So she and her dad work on that together. But it sparks interest in her. She likes to read about them, compare them, whatever makes your 4-H'er, hopefully it's connected to their 4-H experience in some way, but makes them excited, makes them want to know more. Here's another example. My love for baking began in the 5th grade. I was working on mastering different cookie making techniques with 4-H. I have continued to learn new skills in baking and have 10 projects to take to the state fair, earning all purple ribbons, maybe over her career. As a result, I want to become a professional baker. And here's a list of things I'm doing to follow my spark. So here she lists again. I've enrolled in French at my school. I'm learning the language because I want to study at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, France, after I earn a degree at UNL. Go Big Red. So that's kind of cute. I volunteer as a team leader for food science camp at Metro Community College. And then I plan on majoring in business at UNL because I want to be confident in my skills as an entrepreneur when I open my bakery. So this person has all her trajectory figured out. May change, and then gives another photo of one of her first years in the baking project. So it's my oldest. I have all these photos. She does not send 10 things to the state fair, but she did say, I love baking. 4-H has taught me how much I love it. She is enrolled in French now to start learning the language. This is in her plan. She is 12. It will likely change, but it hasn't since she was 10. So we'll see how this goes. Good luck, right? But I thought that's a good example of career spark. Loves to bake, loves to learn about how all this works together. Thermodynamics affects the bake and chemistry of the ingredients. So that's career spark. If you're a senior, we'll ask you to complete the Representing Nebraska 4-H section. If you're going to if you want to go to Congress or conference, this should be your 5th page. Only 1 page for this, and there are 2 headings under it about telling about representing Nebraska 4-H, and then a specific prompt that you will respond to with, as a Nebraska 4-H leader, when I look at my state, there are 3 sentences to complete, and we'll show you those. When you talk about representing Nebraska 4-H, you want to talk about why you want to represent it, your motivation to participate in a national opportunity, and then how you're going to share these experiences with your peers. Sometimes we get a question, how will they know what to share, how they're going to share it if they don't know what they're going to learn? But it's really about anything, how would you come back and tell your peers about your family vacation? Would you tweet about it? Would you present, would you share at the lunch table? But ways that you would communicate your experience here locally. It's really about understanding the why behind your application. And even if it's because a parent is strongly encouraging you, it's okay to own that this is important to my whole family. And I've chosen to participate because we have a long history of applications to Congress, and it should really reflect your own experience, your voice, and this youth voice, really why they want to go and what that could look like. And then as I look at my state, those prompts are, I am proud of. So when you look at your state or examine what's going on in Nebraska right now, what makes you proud? I am concerned about, and then I want to start blank in Nebraska. It doesn't have to be a project. It doesn't have to be some big orchestrated whatever, but something you want to put effort into. A last example, I'm proud of the way people in my state come together to help each other. I was inspired to see how adults and youth were willing to step up and give all they had to help victims of the flood. I'm concerned about the increased use of illegal drugs in my school. I'm noticing more and more friends talking about illegal drugs as though they are no big deal and won't impact their future. I'm concerned more and more friends will start using drugs recreationally. And then I want to start talking about how we can come together to decrease illegal drug use in Nebraska. So kind of tying it together, coming together, this use of illegal or recreational illegal drugs, and then how can we all come together to talk about stopping that? Okay. And those are the main sections for the achievement application. If you're applying for scholarships through the Nebraska 4-H Foundation, they also ask you to submit your ACT scores and your transcripts with this PDF, making it one big PDF. I want to assure everyone that the only people that see those are the committee that decides who has earned the scholarship. I don't see those. They are handled securely and destroyed once they've been evaluated. But that is a part of their award process. So, yeah. Very good. Some reminders here. Make sure you say, what awards you're applying for and your program area if you're a senior. Make sure you complete that About Me section, have all the right signatures. Currently, our PDF, fillable PDF, does not allow for signature of the parent. You have to print it off, sign, scan in. We're trying to fix that right now. Someone told me that yesterday. So I'm going to try and fix that for seniors. That my experiences and all should be 4 pages. Juniors 3, 1 page for representing Nebraska 4-H. Some reminders about the scholarship, and then you submit by January. On January 15th, that's the deadline, to 4-H Achieves at unl.edu. And so some folks were curious last year. I didn't know how or when it was received. If you submit it, you will get the turnaround time for notice that it was received is 48 hours for work day. So if you submit it on Friday, you won't get it on Sunday that it was received. It'll be, Monday or Tuesday that it was received, but you will get a confirmation that it was received, and that there are people monitoring that who are making sure that's swift. When you submit, please label it in the following way: your last name, your first name, and your county. 3 words, or 4 if you're from Douglas Sarpy. So here's an example: Walker, Robin, Douglas Sarpy. This is an application from Robin Walker in Douglas Sarpy counties, which will not happen. She is 10, so that's why I used it. Walker, Robin, Douglas Sarpy. So here it would be, Adriana, your last name is Hernandez, right? Hernandez Adriana Washington on your file.
Question. So the ones that are, they're reviewed at county level first, then those are chosen to move forward by the group of judges. May youth make changes in that application during that time period before it's submitted, January 15th?
Yes. I would recommend at least looking at it.
Based on what the judges see and their comments are on that score sheet.
They can choose not to. They can say, you know what, I feel good about this.
Okay.
I'll go forward. Had several questions about that. But yeah, we always want to make their best better.
Right.
So I'm going to be okay with that happening. If that changes, I'll be sure to let you all know. But yeah, I support that. And the state does. If they make changes and it sounds like a 40-year-old woman gave feedback and they made changes, I'm 42, that might affect it. We still want it to be in youth voice.
Sure.
But if there are some grammar errors they didn't catch, like I know there's some on the slides, I let it go. They want to clean that up before January 15th.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like ours is due already October 15th.
Yep.
You've always done that in the past.
Mm-hmm. So it can come back to the youth and they can see there's a few months to make it better. Good. There we go. I'll stop the share. All right. 7:04. Wow. Someone should have warned me. Like 5 more minutes. Any questions from the room or online?
These slides will be online.
I'm going to ask Emily what you all want to do with that.
We'll share out the recording, but we could, if you want to send the slides, we can.
I would recommend sending them as a PDF in case people alter them
Yeah.
We don't want, this is the state's criteria, send them as a PDF so it cannot be changed. I would hate for somebody to get a slideshow that was altered in some way.
Yep.
Not that that happens, this is a pretty nice state. Most people aren't that
We don't have time.
low down. Yeah, that's right. But to make sure you know, yeah. We let counties choose how they want to handle that.
You showed us something earlier and I can't remember what it was.
Maybe the application.
I remember.
Oh, it was the worksheet.
Workbook.
Oh, yeah.
Workbook. Workbook question mark. Okay, word. Okay, I didn't bring that up.
My organization system might be a little bit different than a lot of people. So,
Is it 11,000 emails? Because I can go with you.
did you say that?
Yeah, out loud.
So this is a workbook I created for folks who've never done anything like this before. You may have done something similar, a career portfolio, whatever it could be, old hat. But it walks you through the process. It says when completing the application, use those headings. Make sure you have them clearly labeled. We want to definitely be able to see that. And then if you're walking through for the first time, you can start writing out your experiences throughout your career. And when you first glance at those, what stands out to you? So it's literally teaching some critical reflection. It is 10 pages, but it walks you through the process if this is your first time doing it. So these lines here don't give any indication of how long it should be. It just made it a nice 10 pages. And it says that at the top. So don't think, oh, she only put 2 lines here. I should have a small amount. That's not it at all. It's just what aesthetically worked. So how many years have you been in 4-H? It helps break down those questions to get it into a readable, manageable format. So your numbers of projects you're involved in, you can articulate that in your writing. You have it here. Talks about those patterns that we see, these questions, your number of competitions, what other experiences have you had in 4-H over time? You can list those. Start creating, like, here's the bones or the basis for my application.
So that through these questions, they can discern what they want to choose to put on the application. Okay.
Yep. So every section ends this way. For each section, use the answer to the questions to guide your content.
And is that going to be available?
You can show them.
I think that would help kids
Yeah,
a lot.
I do
As
too.
an organizer, they're used to those in school, so
Mhm.
that would be helpful.
Is that on the state website?
No, I sent it out to you so that each county can
Okay.
choose however they want to use these resources.
That'd be great.
I'll send it back to you.
Yeah.
The examples are the same ones that I used in the presentation, so you're not going to get a huge variation in examples. I wrote them one time. And so you see that. So part 2, there it is. Helps you walk through it, highlight 2, highlight 3, to spur your thoughts. I'm going to scroll down kind of fast, right, because it all looks kind of familiar. All these pages, page down. To get to this example list. And so this is an imaginary 4-H'er that I made up, and what her list would look like, over time. So you see in 2013, she was a camper. Oops, sorry. I didn't share this with those at home. I'll keep going. You see she's a camper in 14, camper in 15, 16, and then you see a shift to junior leader, right? So you can start to see there's a shift from junior leader in 2017 to a counselor in training, and in 2019 she became a counselor. So if you're looking for patterns over time, I started out, I did my time as a camper, and now I'm a counselor. Because you've listed these things out and you're looking at them, and maybe you begin to spot that kind of pattern. I'll scroll back up to show you how to use a list. She just had some experiences and some fair entries in 13. Same in 14, and then we see a shift in 16 to county speech competition, where she earned a purple and then a blue at district. And then in 17, we see blue in county speech and county PSA. Maybe she shifted into the intermediate role. Things got a little harder. So, you know, she's learning, oh, I have to work a little harder when I get outside the junior realm, right? Or something like that. And then you've added the culinary challenge to the list of competitions. Those are the kind of patterns that can emerge. We now in 18 see she's a club secretary, that she's earning purple ribbons at the county speech and PSA and blues at district. So she might be thinking, I need to up my game at district if I really want to excel. What do I need to do? She can write about that. So this is just a list, a made-up list of what a made-up 4-H'er could have, a list, and you look for those kind of patterns to write about, that if she wants to own that as learning and change over time. But if they're all purple every year, kudos. Like, that's a hard-working 4-H'er, and or they have really invested in their experience to have really good resources. Hey, that's a win too. You're all in. So that's that example of what I was talking about earlier with the workbook. The last thing is the actual application. I'm going to go to here they are, and I'll open it here as a senior, and the first page gives you the how-tos to tell you about margins, font size, things like that. We want you to adhere to those as well. See? Single space, 12-point font. What we want. Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for being here. Look forward to reading the ones that come in from Washington County and others coming especially. But did you recognize there was a Cumming County youth that went to conference last year? He had been to Congress.
Yeah, the Golden.
He was.
Thank you for your time.
You're most welcome. You can stop the recording again.
But now, like, I had a daughter, she went to conference.